If I could only pick one stock for the wheel strategy, this would be the one. Yo, what's going on, premium chasers? I hope you are having a God blessed day today. Every single person that comments down below is going to get our retirement strategy guide, which is going to go into so much more depth about what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Just drop a comment. I'll personally reply to you with that ebook. And while you're down there, what you doing? Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. But guys, today, all seriousness, we are going to be talking about if I only could pick one stock, right? That's two, but you get the idea. One stock to run the wheel strategy on for the rest of my life, what would it be? Okay. And if most importantly, why? Right now, obviously, this is my personal favorite. Shouldn't necessarily be your personal favorite. Okay. So let's go over the shoulder, right, and get into it. So what it would be is the ETF SPY. Now, there's a few videos already I've talked about on this channel. Bear with me if you've seen those other ones about talking about the SPY wheel, because I'm going to go into a few more strategies in terms of weeklies versus monthlies, which one is like quote unquote better, which one has quote unquote better returns, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you watch this whole video because there's going to be some stuff that we talk about that I haven't talked about before. Why SPY, right? First and foremost, if we list max out SPY here, for the most part, SPY has always hit all-time highs. All right. And in my opinion, my own personal opinion, I do believe SPY will always hit all-time highs again. So why is that important? Well, if you've ran and I'm going to assume you've ran the wheel strategy, you've done some cash secured puts, you've done some covered calls before, or you just have a fairly good understanding of the strategy. Well, one thing that happens when you run the wheel strategy, and trust me, it happens to the best of us, is sometimes we get stuck holding the bag for a little bit, right? Now, how long that bag holding might last, we don't know, right? But if it's SPY, I sleep better at night, okay? Why is that? Well, because at the end of the day, SPY is self-cleansing, meaning the losers, they get booted, and the good ones stay in, right? It's a self-cleansing ETF, and it has, again, always hit all-time highs. So for the most part, it helps me sleep better at night. Worst case scenario, right, with the wheel strategy is you get stuck holding, right, for a long period of time and not able to do covered calls. Again, I'm sleeping better at night knowing it's SPY, okay? Now, barrier to entry. I know some of you are going to be like, Pete, what's the barrier to entry here? It's a lot. All right. For example, if you want to do like, cash secured puts on SPY, as we're going to be talking about here in a moment, you're going to need about, close to a $60,000, $58,000 portfolio to be able to run the SPY wheel, right? So it's something that you could consider, working your way up to. Okay. But for me, you're already very diversified with this. And honestly, I don't know anybody, I've never met anybody that would be upset holding SPY, okay? So let's talk about weeklies versus monthlies, right? So let's go over to this options chain right here. We're going to first start the wheel strategy, of course, by what do we do? Sell a put, baby, right? And we'll go out 30 to 45 days out. Let's see what we got here, okay? So we'll just go out 32 days from here, and now we are on the options chain. Now, this is where we're going to select where we're willing to buy 100 shares of SPY at, okay? So let's scroll down a little bit here and find something that's not like crazy aggressive. Let's look at these 570s here. That's a 22 delta, about a 22% chance of assignment, about an 80% chance of nothing happening and the contract expiring worthless. Looks good to me, just from high level. That's all we're doing here right now, guys. So what we're collecting here is $465 or $463 from the options buyer, right? So we'll toss this into our cash secured put calculator, 463. All these calculators are free inside our Facebook group. Make sure to join. You can download them from the Facebook group. A link is in the description. $570 share price. That means we have to put up and lock up $57,000 in collateral for a month. Our expiration, right, is 32 days out. Now, obviously, these numbers are constantly changing, guys. This is for educational example purposes only, okay? So what are we seeing here? Well, our return here we're seeing is a 0.81. How is that number derived? Well, we are simply dividing our premium that we're collecting from the option buyer by our collateral. Some of you are like, Pete, what? Like 0.81? Like I'm not even beating the market yearly if I'm able to pull this trade off 11 times. Well, let me kind of go full circle with you here, guys, right? Now, number one, obviously you could be more aggressive, right? If you're really premium chasing, right, you're going to go for more aggressive. Now, this topic we're talking about right now is retirement. And when I think of retirement, for my strategy to retire, I'm not going to be doing very aggressive, 3, 4, 5% 8% monthly return things. The reason you're able to generate such a great premium return is because it's risky, right? And if you're okay with those risks, fantastic. But the reason SPY, right, like overall return is only at 0.81 is because it's not as quote unquote risky, because SPY again has always hit all-time highs. The purpose of this is to generate income. It's to generate that premium from the options buyers on some sort of repeatable basis. Okay. So let's take a look at the what a weekly looks like. So let's say that's our monthly example here, and now we'll just quickly do our weekly example. Now weeklies are definitely a more advanced strategy, and I do recommend you really dive into just monthlies for like a year before diving into like SPY weeklies and stuff like that. It requires more management. The thing about the wheel strategy and quad options, guys, is like high level. It's an easy to understand topic, right? It's easy to understand, but get in at prices you choose, collect premium, get out at prices you choose and collect premium. Real easy to understand. But there's a lot of different management and confidence are so important with the wheel strategy, and a lot of people overlook them. They dive into stuff and then they end up really losing a bunch of money because they get into sketchy stuff, okay? So again, with weeklies, you haven't been in enough scenarios yet with the wheel strategy that I would, again, do what you want. I literally don't care. But I'm just telling you from my own personal experiences, it's better to do this for about a year, right? Just doing monthlies, getting put into various scenarios, getting assignment, doing calls, puts, like rolling, like all the stuff that goes into managing positions, because management of positions is more important than just, opening positions, right? You need to have a plan and what your actual plan is, right? So let's take a look at the weekly. So we'll go out. Let's just go out about our, 7 days. We'll just go out like this 8-day one just for the sake of this example here. And we can see here, right, we're going to sell a put. Now, obviously now premiums are a little less juicy, right? And our strike prices are a little like more aggressive, right? Like for example, right, on the 50 on the 570 strike, we're collecting 463. In 8 days from now, the 590s we're collecting 379. Right? So this is where you have to understand, like, what's your risk tolerance, and you build this plan out that fits your strategy, right? Now with the weekly SPY wheel, why I say you should do a monthly SPY wheel for a year or whatever, just do any kind of selling options for a year, is because assignment happens a lot more, okay, when you're running it weekly. At the end of the day, a time is an option seller's best friend, right? The more time we have, right, the better off we are. We're collapsing that, right? Obviously, when we are doing weeklies, right, we're doing 5-7 day expiration stuff. Right? So assignment is a lot more likely. Now, of course, that assignment totally depends on your strike price. You can go down here to the, let's go to the 570s. Let's see if we even have anything here. And you could see if we did the 570s here, our delta is only a 0.07, right? And we collect $53. Okay, maybe that's in your plan and you're like, that's what I'm just going for, and you open like 10 contracts of this or something crazy, right? You could do that for sure, but in my opinion, like that's not what I personally like to do. I still like to be a little bit aggressive. So in this situation, I'd be like, okay, let me take a look at the 580s. I'll still be looking at that 0.20 to 0.30 delta. That gives me a healthy balance of assignment and just expiring worthless. So the 580 is a 0.17, which isn't really aggressive, honestly. Let's go look at the 585s and see what those are looking at. Okay, so that's a 0.27. That's a sweet spot. So let's just use that for our educational example here. We're collecting $240 of premium from the options buyer in this example. We are putting up $58,500. That's going to be locked up for those 8 days, right? So we are locking that up. That money is going to be locked up because your brokerage isn't going to just say you could buy 100 shares of SPY and you're not able to actually do it. It's going to use your cash. It's going to tie that up till that expiration date. Okay. So now we can see that our return here is a 0.41. Right, is a 0.41. Now, obviously, you times 0.41 times 4, if you're able to do this and not get assigned 4 times in a month, you're beating, right? You're beating your monthly by a decent amount. Let's just do our time. Let's just say roughly for this example, guys, you do this every week. You're collecting almost $1,000 of premium from the option buyer. Now, obviously, these numbers will constantly change. Your collateral is going to change. This is just for educational example purposes. The point I'm showing you this is you're taking on more risk as a weekly option seller, and when you take on more risk, you get more premium. You see what I'm saying, right? So that's what there is no free premium in this game, right? You're given more premium because you're taking on more risk. And when you take on more risk, you are rewarded from the buyers, right? And that has to be a risk that you're willing to take, right? So you could see we are we're essentially doubling what we would get in terms of our return if we compare to our monthly option selling of SPY versus our weekly option selling of SPY. Now, this isn't necessarily taking into account the covered call side of this, where there is some extra juice to be had, right? Let's assume that you already own 100 shares of SPY, or you took assignment of SPY from one of your cash secured puts. Well, what we can then do the following week is we would sell a call. And again, we would go out about that 7-day expiration. You don't always have to follow. Guys, some of you I want to say this but I feel like there's going to be a million questions about it. So I'm going to say it. It doesn't have to necessarily always stick to exactly like a 7-day expiration, right? You could stick to stuff that, let's say here in this example, it's 8 days. Like, that's fine. You don't have to stick exactly to a 7-day expiration. You could even be like, you know what? I'm going to do the 4-day expiration. That's totally, it's really totally up to you, right? It doesn't have to be like, some of you'll be like, okay, so I'm opening them up on Monday and they just opening it up on Monday and I'm doing, and I'm setting an expiration on Friday. Right, Pete? Like, no, it totally depends. Some of you will even be like, hey, maybe I'll do 2 weeks. Maybe I'll do 2 weeks. And that's a damn good way of thinking, right? Be like, hey, instead of doing the monthlies, I want to be a little bit more aggressive, but I don't want to be so aggressive like the weeklies. Maybe I'll do 14 days. This is what's cool about this game, guys. You could build this thing out however you see fit. All right. Like there is no, it's all about your strategy, right? Like, you build this up for yourself. You don't have to do it on a set time at a set date. Sure, it's good to build a habit. And if it's like, hey, every Monday you're going to, sell your puts or sell your calls on SPY, and that's just kind of your routine that you do every week, right? Fantastic. But I'm just saying, you think outside the box a little bit, right? And that's going to help you. All right. So let's just go back for this example. Let's say we're doing selling a call. Well, in this example, let's assume that we do have 100 shares of SPY that we are willing to sell, right? Let's assume we bought them around, market price, $5.90, just for the sake of this example, right? So now we come in here and we go out about 8 days, right? And let's say, in a week from now, if it hits, 600, we'd be willing to sell that. Let's open that up and see what our delta here is. A 0.29 delta, sweet spot, right? I like to be between a 0.2 and a 0.3 delta, okay? But again, for you, that might look a little bit different. So for that, we're collecting the 214 premium from the options buyer, right? So I'm just going to put 214 here, right? We'll zoom in a little bit. Again, all these calculators are free in our Facebook. Everything here is free on the channel. The only thing that costs money, so I don't pull a rabbit out of the hat, is if you want like one-on-one time, and that's our 1-year-long incubator. If you are interested in that, link is in the description. But besides that, everything is free. I want you guys to go use these calculators, go do this stuff. Don't just watch videos, all right? So our strike of the option, we said, was $600, what we'd be willing to sell our SPY shares at. Our purchase, we just say $5.90 for the sake of this example, around market price you bought your 100 shares of SPY at, and we get a premium return of a 0.36. Okay. If we end up selling our shares, right, we'd make an extra $1,000 in profit. Fantastic. For a total profit on the trade of around $1,200. Okay. Or a 2% return. Now, obviously, we can factor in our cash secured put premiums that we collected here as well. So our total return would look larger. But with that said, some of you might be looking at this and be like, Pete, these returns are so low. Like, why would I do this instead of doing like SoFi or, any other, NVIDIA, AMD? Well, I challenge your way of thinking. The SPY wheel is not, in my opinion, this is my opinion, is not meant to go for moonshots, like 3-4% returns. Now, sometimes in the market that we're in right now, it's a possibility, right? But the point of this is to, like, for example, let's say you have $1 million in retirement, right? A lot of people will pull about 4% of their money and use that to live off of. In my opinion, I think that's not a good idea, right? I rather take the money, and the money actually creates more money, right? Which that money that it creates, I use to live off of, and then that money is still just doing its thing and compounding. Right? So instead of like taking from my principal, I'm just using my principal a little bit smarter to generate like active income, AKA premium. Guys, don't forget, drop a comment down below today, and you guys are going to get the early retirement strategy playbook. I'll personally respond to you with that. Also, if you are somebody that's interested in a more handheld approach, maybe the 1 year incubator is something you want to check out. It is an absolute awesome group of us where basically you get to really dive in deep on how to set up an option selling portfolio for yourself. And I do recommend giving it a year to really master all of the different scenarios that you can be in. And it takes about a year because we don't trade a lot, as you see here. A few trades a month is all you really need. Take a look in the description of today's video for that link. Guys, remember, sell options, collect premiums, and repeat. I'll see y'all tomorrow.